Now that we've seen a relatively straightforward usage of 2D arrays from scratch, let's take a look at one of the more complicated examples from the book. So over here, this is going to be the SodaSurvey example. Let me clear my output, compile it, and then run it to see what the output is. The goal of this program is to take averages for each of the rows in a 2D array. So over here, you may notice there's a score array going on, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to take averages of each of these, right? So let's go ahead and print it out, and hopefully we get 4 different averages for those 4 different rows that we have. So over here, we have these different averages, 3.2, 2.6, 4.2, 1.9, and then also the averages in the other direction. The rows are representing scores that correspond to a soda. So our scenario here is we went out and we did a survey and we asked people to rate sodas out of 5, right, 1 to 5, based on what they liked. So we collected a bunch of data, and so we have 10 different values from people who rated a particular drink. So this row is for the first soda, this second row is for the next soda, third soda, fourth soda. So these are all of our different drinks that we're trying to see how well they perform, how well people like them. And then each column is actually a person. So 10 different people participated in this survey, and they had these different ratings for the different sodas. So for example, the first person rated the first soda 3, second soda 2, third soda 3, last soda 1. So each column is a person rating sodas. Each row is all of the ratings for a particular soda. And we're showing averages in both directions, right? So these are the averages for the sodas, right? How much people like them versus how much people like drinks in general. So if we look at this data really quick, we notice, for example, that soda 4 had the lowest average, soda 3 had the highest average. Over here we can look at and we can see that, for example, person 7 didn't rate any drinks high. Person 10 rated a bunch of drinks high. So we can see the averages of this data in both kind of directions. So let's take a look at how this program is put together. So the first thing we have is our declaration of a 2D array. So our 2D array here is called scores. Notice, right, that we have our double brackets to indicate that we're creating a new array, a new 2D array. And then inside we have this static initializer list, right? We instead of reading this in from the user, we've just typed it in our program. So we're using here our curly brace syntax, right, to represent that I'm literally typing in an array that I want to use somewhere else in my program. Normally, if it's just a 1D array, then I would just put in this part here, right? This is curly, a bunch of numbers, close curly, right? This is a 1D array. But because I have 2 arrays, right, an array of arrays, I ended up having to declare these 4 different 1D arrays, right? And then once I've declared those 4 different 1D arrays, then I put it in this outer array, right? This part here. That's the 2D array, right? This is an array that holds 4 things. Those 4 things happen to be arrays themselves. By doing that, we are able to define a 2D array. So let's take a look at the other variables declared here. The first 2 are going to be constants, and these are really just to help us out with things that we want to use a bunch of times. First thing here is to define a variable called sodas, which is the number of sodas that were tested. Over here, we're going scores.length to represent that we want to get the total number of sodas, right? The size of that outer array, right? So in this case, it's going to give us 4. The second thing we do here is create a variable called people. People is going to be the number of people that participated in the survey. In order to get that, we're going to go scores.0.length. So what this is doing, right, is it's going to the scores variable, and then it's going to the 0th index, right, that first element, this part here. It's getting that array, and then on that inner array, it's doing the .length, right? So in this case, it's going to give us 10 here. So this is the number of people, this is the number of drinks. And we read both those values directly from that 2D array that we constructed with the initializer list. So these 2 values, we maybe did not have to create a variable for them, but because we're going to be referring to the number of sodas and the number of people several times in our program, it's convenient for us to put them into their own variables. Now that we have those set up, we're going to create 2 more arrays that we're going to use to store our averages. So we're going to create one to store the soda averages and one to store the people averages, right, for each person. And over there, right, we're able to use those variables we just set up that have the number of sodas and the number of people. So create a new array, a size 4, call SodaSum, create a new array of size 10, call person sum. So at this point, all of our data is set up. We just need to compute the averages and then display them. We're going to end up breaking the process of averaging these numbers into two pieces. First, we're just going to accumulate the different ratings into our SodaSum and person_sum variables, right? We're going to sum them all up. And then later, once we display that information, that's when we'll actually divide them by the total number of sodas and the total number of people in order to actually compute the average. For now, we're just going to start by taking the sum of them. Over here, we have our two loops. Remember that since we have a 2D array, we need to have two loops to go over the two different dimensions inside of that array. One dimension represents soda, the other one represents people. So the first loop we have here is going to start a variable called soda. Soda is initially 0, and it goes up to sodas. Sodas before we said was 4 means that soda is going from 0 to 4. Well, that particular variable is going to be looping over the different rows that I have in my scores variable. So it's going to go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and stop, right? So it's going to go and look at each of those rows being specific to a certain soda. The next loop I have is for a variable called person. Person starts at 0 and goes to less than people. People is 10, so that means it's going to go from 0 to 9. So that is going to walk us along one of these rows, right? So it's going to go and look at each column. Column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, right? So it's going to look at each element in those rows. So we have those two loops going. Those will let us see every single element inside of my 2D array. But what do I actually do with that? Well, over here, right, I'm going to go and I'm going to look in each of those spaces, right? So I'm going to go look in the scores table at row soda and column person, right? So that's going to look at these things here, right? Initially, right, soda and person are 0, so they're going to start looking over here, right? Then later, soda is going to be 0, person's going to be 1, it'll look over there. Soda is going to be 0, person's going to be 2, it'll look over there, and it'll keep on going, right? So soda is initially 0, right? 0 from the outer loop. And then inside, the person variable is going to move along from 0 up until 9, right? So it's going to walk along and visit each of those while it's still on that soda at row 0. And we're going to get to see all of them. So each of those scores that we're looking at a particular cell, we're going to take that and we're going to add it into first the SodaSum variable, right? So whatever soda we're looking at, right, whatever row we're looking at, we're going to add that into the SodaSum side array, right, that other array we created for that particular soda, right? So when we're on the soda 0, right, for row 0, we're going to sum up the stuff there. And we're going to save it right into SodaSum of 0, right? So this SodaSum is going from 0 to 3, and each of those spaces inside is representing a different soda. So we're going to be adding in to the particular slot there that corresponds with the soda we're looking at in that huge 2D scores table. We then do the same thing for person, right? So we take out a piece of information from that table, and then we add it, right? We sum it. This is a plus equal here, right? Meaning we just add it into what's already there. We do that into the person sum variable at the person index, right? So whatever person we're currently looking at a score from, that person we're going to accumulate that score into their kind of position, right? Right, that person sum array is going from 0 to 9 to represent that we have those 10 different people who are scoring things. So every time we see a score, put that score into their little box, right? Add up all the things they gave us. Once we have that, we're going to start setting up our output. So the first thing we need to do is set up our decimal format. You may have noticed over here, right, that we're displaying all these with a point whatever at the end, right? So 0.2, 0.6, 0.9, right? We're just putting one decimal place. That's what this line here is setting up, right? Decimal format, 0 point pound, right? So some number dot one kind of level of precision afterwards. After that, we go system.out.println of averages, right? So this is the header of the information we're going to be printing out. First thing we want to do after we have that is print out the averages for the sodas. So in this case, we're going to end up looping over that SodaSum array. Remember that in that SodaSum array, we've added together each of those rows, right? So instead of having to deal with each of the answers from the survey, right, each of those 10 answers for that soda, we've taken all of these and we've added them together and we've put them into that SodaSum array. So that SodaSum array, right, has a sum for the first row, second row, third row, fourth row. All right, so what we'll do is we'll have a for loop, right, another for loop, and that for loop is going to look at each value, right, in that soda sum array. Each value, of course, is a sum for all the ratings of the soda received. And then for that value, right, that value in soda sum, right, that value in soda sum at soda, we'll divide it by people, right, by the number of ratings that we added together to get that sum rating for that soda, right? 10 people were surveyed for each soda, so we need to divide that sum by 10, right, by people. And then we'll use, right, the formatting in here to make it look nice. So this here is computing our nice average, and then we're displaying that with the println. And the println is going to start every line by telling us, oh, you're looking at this soda, right? So we're looking at soda number, soda plus 1. Remember that since arrays start at 0, we had also our for loop start at 0. Well, really, the user doesn't really know about a soda 0. It maybe looks odd to them. So what we'll do is we'll just add 1 to shift it up, right? So instead of the user looking at soda 0, 1, 2, 3, the user will get to see soda 1, 2, 3, 4, which makes a lot more sense for them. So this code here, this will run, and it'll print out that average for each of the sodas, and it'll show which soda that average is for. So that over there is corresponding to this output here. This soda 1, 3.2, and so on. Once we have that, we'll print out one blank line so that our formatting looks nice. And then we'll repeat the same process to print out the averages for each of the people, right? The people each rated 4 drinks. What was that person's average for all the drinks they rated? So this loop again, we're going for person, we're going from 0 to people. We want to print out an average for each of the people that was in our survey. We'll do this little shifty thing, right? So instead of going at person 0, we'll start at person 1. And then in here, right, we're going to go to the person sum variable, and we're going to go to a particular person, right, whichever person our loop is looking at. And then for that person, right, we've already summed up each of the 4 scores they've given. And then we'll take that and we'll divide that by the number of sodas. Number of sodas is 4, so that is going to give us our average here, right? So this line is giving us the average of a person's scores over all the different sodas that they sampled. And then that output is, of course, being displayed right here. We have our averages from a 2D array in both directions, right? Representing the average for how well people liked a particular soda, as well as how each person liked their sodas in general.